Yay. Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to our live discussion of how to enter into God's story. We're happy to be gathering as Every Woman's Story community, where we believe that every person has a story that matters, and every one of us has a seat at Jesus's table. So we're going to be discovering more of our stories as we look at God's story. And we have a funny flip today because normally I'm the co-host of these lives, but today I'm actually the guest. So my normal co-host, Eliza Cortés Bast, and our guest, fabulous co-host Rachel McCants, are going to actually flip the tables on me. And watch out, I have no idea what they're going to ask. So, well, I have a tiny bit, but not everything. So, yeah. Hey, friends, be nice.
Well, Naomi, we're so glad to have you today with us as our guest, even though we have the privilege of having you as a co-host often. But if you've been following us for a little bit, you know we start with a little bit of this or that. And so, Naomi, we're going to give you the special and fabulous Easter/Holy Week edition. So you can give us a little bit of this or that about your Easter practices. And so we'd love to know, are you ham or lamb?
Oh, definitely lamb. Yeah,
Okay.
lamb and I rub it I do a New York Times recipe that you rub it. It sounds really weird, but it's incredible. You rub it with anchovy paste that's blended with rosemary and garlic, and you punch all these holes in it. You smush it in, and then you cover it with butter, and it's really good. So yeah.
Butter makes everything better. I also want to
Absolutely.
just point out, friends, if you have been following us for a while, Naomi also is a fabulous cook. And so there's a part where some of you may be thinking like, oh, I just go to Sam's Club and I get the ham. This is not what's happening here. So just if you're following us, this is what's happening. Okay, are you hard boiled eggs or do you do candy filled eggs?
Oh gosh. Okay, it has to be an either or. Okay. Well, if I could only have one, I would do the hard-boiled eggs because I really
Okay.
enjoy coloring them. That's super fun.
Are you, now I'm going to ask this for Rachel too, because I don't know for Rachel. Are you peeps or jelly beans? Or I'm going to add, are you chocolate? Like what ends up in the basket? Like what is not left over in the basket?
You want me to go first?
Oh,
So,
Go for it, Rachel.
I am not really a candies person, but I often, when people offer me chocolate, I tell them I'm already chocolate. So,
And beautiful chocolate, I might add.
oh,
So
thank you.
yeah.
But I guess I would go with chocolate.
Okay. So that would be what's not left over. Okay, so it was jelly beans or Peeps. If I could only have one, I'd do Peeps because I love marshmallows and I particularly love stale marshmallows. And I think the appeal of Peeps is that they're kind of like slightly stale marshmallows. So definitely Peeps.
I've heard this is a thing. Like if you leave them out, like some people will open the bag just a tiny bit so they can get like that nice crust, marshmallow crust. All right. Are you an asparagus or are you spring mixed greens?
Oh, definitely the greens. I actually don't like asparagus. I know you're supposed to eat it at Easter, and so I do cook it. Like I did cook it on Sunday, but I do it mostly for other people. I give myself like two little spears just to put the green on the plate, but that's it.
It's more about the aesthetic than maybe the actual like nutritive value.
Yes. What about you? You seem to like asparagus when I said that.
I love asparagus. I don't know about you, Rachel. I love asparagus.
I love both. And people look at me crazy because I choose vegetables every time over fruit. So I'm just a vegetables person. So,
Wow.
Well, I love that. What's your favorite, Rachel?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I love them all. But I mean, I guess I gravitate to green beans and spinach.
Oh, yes. Yes. All right, last this or that from me. And part of this, I think, just really hails, Naomi, to your international experience. But what are we talking about for bread? Are we hot cross buns or are we looking at Easter bread for you?
Ah, so so I grew up kind of as part of and really nearby a Portuguese fishing community. And so there was a big fishing community, and that was where all my friends were. So we do actually a Portuguese Easter bread, and the recipe came from one of our family friends from two generations back, believe it or not. And so I pull out her recipe and make that bread every Easter, and it's delicious. My mom used to. My mom, however, had 8 children. And so she was a lot more pragmatic than I am. And so she would just go like buy the packaged hot cross buns. And that was good for her. So that worked better for her life.
I love it. Rachel, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, well, first and foremost, I just want you to know that I am trying to come to every family gathering that you have, especially if you're cooking, because it sounds delectable. But
Thanks.
so you wrote an article for Every Women's Story, and can you recap your message for the women who are tuning in today?
Sure. What I want to share with you is my own journey that I think a lot of us can relate to, maybe even daily, of going from feeling not enough to discovering that we are enough, not because we like amp ourselves up and tell ourselves positive phrases, but because Jesus Christ makes us enough.
Yeah.
And all the good work that Jesus did to bring us close to God not only one time made us enough, like way back in the day, but is something that we can continually come back to every hour that we feel not enough. So, and you may not be an every hour not enough person. God bless you. I envy you, but I often am. So Jesus makes us enough. You are enough because Jesus makes you enough. That was the title of my message.
I love that. And that is such a prominent discussion in today's society because so many people are going through that. So many ladies are going through that, including myself. So trust me, I identify with you so much. And I love that. And also ladies dealing with feeling unseen. What Bible-based wisdom would you offer to the women who feel that way, unseen?
I think one of the things that a lot of people love about Jesus and who he, showed himself to be in the pages of the Bible was that he saw women in ways that nobody around him saw women. He also saw children in ways that nobody saw children. And he saw people who weren't part of the power elite and weren't the super religious men. He saw, regular people like fishermen. Again, my friends, okay. They weren't Portuguese fishermen, though, however, in this situation. They were Israeli fishermen. But he tended to see people who other people overlooked.
Mhm.
And one story I think of is the woman who had been outcast and bleeding for years. And just think about that. If you've ever been low on iron, had any health problem where you're, losing blood for whatever reason for years, how weak you would be physically. And then add to that, in that culture, that made her ceremonially unclean. So she was cast out. She couldn't be part of the religious and faith community where people would gather and have feasts and weekly Sabbath meals. She was physically and emotionally bereft. And so when the big dude, Jesus came to town and she's like, I've heard this guy can heal people, all she had the wherewithal to do was to reach out and just touch his garment, just touch his robe. And he could have either A, just not noticed that, or B, noticed it and went, oh, okay, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm not for her. I'm here for where I'm going and the people I need to go meet with. But he turned around and said, wait, what just happened? And he took the time to not only see her, but to say, your faith has basically made you well. And he healed her. But beyond that, he took the time to acknowledge her. And by doing that, he uplifted her among other people. So that's just one of so many examples of ways that Jesus saw the unseen, um, men and women and children, that was really, I think we can take daily comfort from because that means he sees us today too.
Yeah, I love that.
Think about, even wondering if you're doing enough and just that kind of, when you frame that story, just that desperation of just like, I hope this is enough. Like you have to imagine after however many years, of trying and failing and spending money and time and energy and resources and just hoping that was just enough. And I hear that in your story as well. Rachel, I don't know about you.
Yes, I love that. And I love the way you described it because I love your point of view, your POV. That's what the youngins are saying these days. POV, point of view. I appreciate your point of view because I never looked at it that way. Like I've looked at it and I know he took the time, but just the fact that he could have said, no big deal, or I didn't come here for that, like, didn't kept on going. And I also want to compliment you, Dr. Naomi, because I feel like you exhibit that in Jesus, especially like Jesus, especially for me. This is just a personal testimony of Dr. Naomi's goodness, but I have felt unseen. And I know I'm a speaker and I do different things, but just your personal vision or seeing me, it means a lot. So thank you. And so I just love that you use that story because you exhibit it very well.
Well, thank you. I will give the credit to that only because of the fact that I feel like Jesus lifts my head again and again. So,
Amen. Yes,
So
yes.
Naomi, as we think about like this next week and, kind of like people are kind of crusting through Easter and it feels like this kind of like high and you're coming down like, and we take the time to intentionally see people leading up to Easter. Most people tend to pray more. They're looking for invitation more. What would you offer to people who are just like, hey, how do you keep seeing and how do you keep letting people know that they are more than enough in Christ Jesus? What does that look like in a post Easter Sunday world?
yeah. Okay. It's going to sound a bit counterintuitive, but, and actually, Elisa and I have the joy of working together. So she got to hear me say this at we have team devotionals at the ministry we work with, Stonecroft Ministries. So on Monday, I was saying, some Easters leading up to it, I felt like I'm in the passenger seat and like, if it's a spiritual journey, Jesus is in the driver's seat, of course, because he's God. And I'm in the passenger seat and I'm like, yay, we're going places. This is awesome. But if I ever needed to, I could reach over and take the wheel, right? There's that sense of I had some big influence here. And this particular Easter, and it relates to your question, I really felt like I was in the back seat. I felt like, Jesus, it's all you. I can't even pretend I sit in that passenger seat and could take the wheel. The only reason I have hope in this world and am brought close to God and can deal with all the ways I still fall short every day is because of you. And I am so glad to be in the back seat. And I'm glad it's a big back seat. And a lot of us, like everybody who wants to be back there, is welcome. And so for me, how do I keep in that posture, which by the way, brought me tremendous hope because then it's not up to me and I don't have to think it's my religiosity or anything else, is actually to not close the door. I think of it as like we come through the door of Easter, and I don't know about you, but in my way of doing life, I kind of close the door on whatever already happened. And I'm just like, okay, today, brand new day, can't even think about yesterday. But can I think about the ways I still need God desperately? And if I can think about that, then it's an unusual way to come into a sense of then I am met with how abundantly God knows that and says, it's okay. It never was about you. It never was about you. So let's just have a joyous day here.
Amen. How do you get in the back seat? How do you control?
That's a good question.
Like get in the back seat. Please let us know.
Oh boy, I think of the C.S. Lewis quote, that God whispers in our pleasures but shouts in our pain. I think pain puts you in the back seat pretty easily. Is there a voluntary way to get back there? Oh, I think it's similar. It's kind of like being able to look at ourselves and go, okay, I do have a to-do list that not only is overwhelming and I'll never get through it, but I didn't get through it yesterday or last week. And I've let all these people down. And I mean, being able to actually look at our need is, I think, a way to be able to go, okay, I am loved and I am flawed and I am loved. There we go.
I'm just curious from your seat, Naomi, for women who maybe are feeling like they've just failed and like part of like, I have a to-do list and I'm overwhelmed by the things that I didn't get to check off and can God still use me because I'm failing as a mom, I'm failing as a wife, I'm failing as a sister, I'm failing as a daughter, as an employee, as a whatever, what words of hope would you scream from the back seat? For somebody who's like, I didn't choose to be in the backseat, and here I am in the backseat. Because I would say that's true. Rachel, you talked earlier about where just women are at, and I think the amount of responsibility that many women carry for all the places that they hold. It's easy for them to just say, you know what, I deserve to be in the backseat because I'm failing.
Yeah, I was actually listening to a book yesterday about neurodiversity and women who are neurodiverse in some way, and how no matter how hard they try, literally, they're never going to be like, at best, they're going to be a C minus in the areas that they're trying to be like a typical person, right? And I think we can, in some ways, we're all diverse, and so I think there's that. It makes me think of Psalm 139, where the verse that says, "For I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and you saw me in my mother's womb, and your works are wonderful, and you know me, every hair in my head, every flaw about me, every time I've yelled at my kids, every time I have zoned out, in whichever way I zone out, instead of being present to the things and the people you called me to love, um, you know it all." And then one of the things I love about that passage too was it talks about, even if we go to these dark places where we might be facing depression or anxiety or just despair, and that there's this aspect in that 139, Psalm 139, where it says, even there, it's talking about Sheol, but that's still the darkness. Even there, your hand will guide me. You're going to hold me fast. And so I think there's very much this relationship of, yeah, and let's be honest. If we're pulling back the curtains, we're crummy at something, and we're different in some way. Crummy and different are not the same, but there is some way where we are not what we think we should be.
Yeah.
And that idea of God knows everything about us, and he loves us. And he actually says some of the things other people say are weird about us are actually beautiful to him. And when we're putting ourselves in dark places, or feel like we are stuck in dark places, even there, if we seek him and we ask, he's going to show us he's there with us.
Yeah.
I love that. And what you mentioned about our crumminess, I love how you said that, because I feel like that is even a part of our enoughness. Like, that he made us holy the way we are. And it's okay sometimes to be frustrated and tell him, how dare you, or why did you do this? But you have to accept it and operate in that, because that is you, and you are great because you are enough because God says so.
Amen.
Do you have
Amen.
any thoughts
Preach
on
it.
that, Dr. Any thoughts on that, Dr. Naomi?
I'm sorry, what did you say, Rachel? I didn't hear you. I was so enamored with your message. So go ahead.
I wondered what you had, or if you had any thoughts on that.
The crumminess and the enoughness. I think you can't get one without the other.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
What about you, Miss Elisa? I call you Miss, but in my mind, you're Dr. Elisa, just so you know.
Close. It's hard because, it's, my internal narrative is a lot harder, than what I experience from the outside. I'm always running the task list of what didn't get done the way I wanted it to get done, didn't get done at the time that I wanted it to get done, didn't get done the way I wanted to. And, I'm grateful, as I think about Holy Week, I think about, Jesus intentionally choosing Judas, because Judas helped him get to the cross too. There's a part where it's like when you select your 12, like there always is going to be things inside of that 12 that are going to be hard. But I think God in his faithfulness brings things into your inner circle that takes you to the cross daily, that makes you have to go to the cross. And so, because my list, I'll try it in my own strength to be like, oh, I'm going to beat this crumminess. Like, I have the wherewithal and I have the willpower to do it. And the days when I feel the most defeated is where I couldn't do it on my own. And I'm not supposed to. And so there's a part like it, it should be taking me to the cross, because I can't do it without the Lord, and it's, yeah, as soon as you said the crummy, I was like, the list like immediately popped up in my head, like all the things I'm like, oh, one day I'm going to get to that. One day I'm not going to do that anymore. And I'm going to be amazing at that. So my crummy list gets long some days.
Yeah. Mine too.
Mine three.
Well, Naomi, I would love if there is anything that before you close us out, as we get to hear you do when we're all together every time. I love it. But I want to give you some space. Is there anything else that you would leave with women, particularly women, but whoever might be listening to us today? What gift of wisdom or hopefulness would you give them for their own story of what it means to be enough?
It's interesting that you ended up going there, because I was already thinking about an insight that I gained the hard way. that I thought this is probably what I'd share. And it does have to do with your own story. So a project I was part of involved me looking at 237 different stories that women shared with me. And what I saw as I looked at that, they would share their story and then they would share part of the Bible's story. And what I saw was that let's do ourselves a favor and others around us a favor by facing in to the crummy. Because when I saw these 237 stories from all these different women from almost every continent in the world, what I saw was the only thing that connected with me was when they were totally honest about their own story and when they were as transparent as possible about how they were entering into and grappling with God's story. Whenever we say things to ourselves or to others, it's like, just trust God, or just, Jesus, others, or whatever. I'm not saying those don't have elements of truth. They do. But God loves our whole story. And your whole story really matters. And when you share your whole story, like we see in the Psalms, for example, the dark and the light, that's where people actually go, wow, there's a God who can handle my whole story too. And so don't shortcut it. Don't shortcut it with yourself saying, I just should do all these little things that fit in a meme, be able to go into your own story. And then as God guides you, offer that story to other people too, because they need to hear it. That would be what I'd want to leave.
Well, thank you. Before you close this, some of you may not know Rachel. And Rachel, would you like to just offer whoever might be listening just a little gift of who you are?
I am Rachel McCants. I live in Dallas, Texas. I'm an author, speaker, and playwright. And I have the blessing of working with these two ladies as a volunteer with Stonecroft.
Thank you.
She's a rock star. Yeah, just so you know, that's who she is.
Naomi, I'm going to turn it over to you to close out our time today.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us on this live. If there was something you found encouraging to you to be able to face into your own story, your places of not enoughness, and finding that you are made enough, not by your own power or strength, but by that being able to get honest and let God see the honest you, then I'd invite you to share this. Tag some friends in your comments and forward this to others. And then also, we just invite you to hang out with us at Every Woman's Story. There's a community there. There's a couple podcasts. There's daily devotions. There's lots of good ways to keep the high of Easter, not just an emotional thing, but a part of your rhythm of every single day, and to meet some other crazy, wonderful women from around the world. So what I wanted to close with, though, is every one of us has a story, and our stories matter. And we have a seat that we're welcome to sit at Jesus's table. So we hope you'll do that. We hope you'll hop on over and join us at Every Woman's Story, and also join us on Instagram and Facebook and all the places, YouTube. Have an incredible start to your new year. If Easter was day one, then this is day 3. So have a great year ahead, and keep coming back to share stories and to hear stories that encourage you. All right. Bye. Thanks for joining us today.